Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Anthony's Journey. So, last time we talked about my first year as a consultant. So, I was working for a client called Watermark Insights, and yeah, it was my first year as a consultant, and I was, working through various tasks such as audit prep, being an AR manager for the first time, and quite a few other items that I had to work on as a consultant for the first time. So, now we're in 2020. So, my first engagement with my client was actually coming to a close in around June of 2020. But before then, I actually had a few things that I had to work on with my senior consultant. So the first thing was something called compliance. And what compliance is in the accounting world is basically writing up memos, writing up something called process narratives. So process narratives is just basically just, kind of telling you, kind of working through the process of the business and just saying like exactly what the business does. So an example is the AR process narrative, which basically outlines, the different days that you collect the money, who things get escalated to. So these are the kinds of things that I actually started working much more closely with during my second year as a consultant. So I worked a lot more on, helping my senior consultant write up something called the ASC 606 memo, which basically is a revenue compliance memo that basically outlines, the revenue standards of, hey, like how sales should be accounted for, how sales should be adjusted for. There's something called deferred revenue, which basically means that if a sale is sold, to kind of explain it as best as I can, is like, let's say you have a 12-month contract, and then you would actually recognize 12 months of deferred revenue, which basically just means that over the 12 months, you actually recognize 1 month of revenue as the service is completed. So all of these items had to be outlined in the ASC 606 memo, basically outlining how sales were calculated and all that fun stuff. So, but besides that, there was actually other fun stuff that actually happened in 2020 as well. My client also had a few acquisitions. So we actually had companies that they acquired. They acquired 2 companies, and basically we had to work through something called PPA accounting, which is called purchase price accounting. Purchase price accounting basically just means that up to the date of purchase, anything pre-purchase is basically on the old company's books, and anything after that is basically the date of acquisition. So anything pre-acquisition, you have to do something called PPA adjustments, because essentially those assets weren't yours prior to the acquisition, and as well as those. So assets basically mean like their cash and their accounts receivable, for example, which is their, the amount of sales that they had outstanding from their clients on credit, and as well as like all their accounts payable, which is basically the amount that's due to their vendors. So essentially all of these items have to be done, pre-acquisition and then post-acquisition. So I actually helped my senior actually work on the PPA accounting, and we actually got all of their assets and liabilities up to the point of acquisition for both companies, and then anything after that we accounted for as our own company. So some of the items that also include PPA accounting is actually our deferred revenue account, which is one I just mentioned, and essentially anything before that we would assume that it's effectively the client's or the company that was acquired, and then after that it's ours. So so I worked on that with my senior consultant. So it's definitely a busy year for 2020, and this all happened in the first 6 months of the year. And on top of that, we also were going through the audit. So essentially we were getting audited as well at the time. So it was a lot of stuff going on, definitely. And it was a busy year, and we were effectively, we're in a really tough spot overall, because as the years kind of flew by, now in my second year, my client actually wasn't doing too well financially. So they actually were letting a lot more people go, and it was a really tough time, to be honest. Like, the economy wasn't so good at the time, so a lot of people were being let go, and it was also around the time of COVID, of course. That was another thing that wasn't really helping. Everyone was kind of working from home, so there was a lot of disjointed communication, and COVID was like a weird time, because I was working from home for the first time as well. So overall, it was something new for everyone. So now we fast forward, we actually managed to write up the memo. We actually did all of our adjustments for the year. We got through the audit. it was looking like a great time overall. And I did get some news around May of 2024 that effectively my contract was not going to be renewed. And I was not surprised because as a consultant, your time comes and goes. And one thing I did want to mention is that during this time, I was working a lot of hours still, as I mentioned in my last video. Consultants sometimes end up working sometimes 80 to 100 hours a week, and this was no exception. It was definitely a lot of grind as a consultant, but I was making decent money, so I kept on the grind. So as we continued down the path, it was around May that I got the news that I was only going to be on this contract until June. So, funny enough, before I was actually, taken off the client, my senior consultant actually was gone end of May. He actually had another engagement, so he decided to leave before me. So, in June, I actually had to do some catch up throughout the year to actually do all the work that he would usually do. So I would catch up the deferred revenue schedule, do all the PPA adjustments myself, and kind of just help the business do all their adjustments every year, every month for the last 6 months of the year.
Hello everyone, my name is Anthony and I'm the host of TheLostSanctuary. I hope you've been enjoying our content so far, and if you have, please feel free to like and subscribe. Also, we have our website up here, and we also have some socials down here, and as always, leave your comments down below.
Effectively, once I was done with everything, I was essentially like off the project. And yeah, I wasn't really sure what was out there for me next. I actually stayed around 2 weeks without a position for a bit, and yeah, that was pretty much like just a chill 2 weeks, like a mini vacation. All right, so now we fast forward, and now I actually am interviewing for another position at a company called Electric AI. So Electric AI is an IT outsource company. So basically, if your company doesn't have an IT service, they actually act as your IT service. So essentially, they're the ones who you call up if your computer's messed up or if you need to install software, all that fun stuff. So essentially, yeah, so that's what Electric AI does. I was interviewing with them for a senior accountant position because their senior accountant was leaving. And it was definitely something different because, I worked in Watermark Insights, which is an education software, and I was going to work for an outsourced IT company. So it was definitely a different set of skills in terms of like what type of industry it was. And then, as I funny enough, as I kind of thought I was going to do this alone, I actually had my senior consultant actually get on this engagement as well. So my senior consultant, he was a great person, so I enjoyed working with him, and I thought I was going to work with him throughout my entire engagement at Electric AI. But then, funny enough, after like a week and a half, it seemed that my senior consultant, might have been too senior for this kind of position. So essentially, he didn't meet the requirements. So essentially, they had to, take him off the engagement. So essentially, I was on my own. It was just me and the controller at the time, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to do because I had to effectively do everything on my own. So kind of collect all the money, AR, which is the AR function, pay all the bills, enter the bills, do the reconciliations. I was effectively doing most of the work on my own as the consultant because it was just me and the controller. But then after like a month, 2 months, we actually hired a staff accountant. And overall, the staff accountant was great, but she actually didn't know much of how to use like all the platforms such as Salesforce, QuickBooks, all of these different systems that we were using. And Salesforce is, just for everyone's knowledge, is a CRM, a customer relationship manager, which basically basically that's where you put all your customer information and you connect everything. And then QuickBooks is the accounting software where you record all of your journal entries, or effectively where you record all your numbers for the year. So, I've never actually trained someone fully to this degree, but she was the staff accountant that we hired was a quick learner, quick study. So I managed to actually work with her for like 3 to 7 days, and she picked up most of the platforms and how to do things. So overall, she was a great help, and she actually helped me understand that you can't just really one man anything. So it was a great experience for me to actually be able to pick up more work, not just as like a senior, but also kind of like almost like a manager in some regard. So as the months passed by, we actually hired a manager after that in a couple of months. And so we effectively had our senior, our manager, me, and the controller. So yeah, so it's effectively we had 4 people on the team, and we were just kind of doing everything on our own. We were entering the bills, we were collecting the money, doing all the journal entries, and yeah, overall it was great because I was able to focus not just on like the expenses and the revenue side, but I was able to do a little of everything, which was something that I was lacking a little bit in my last engagement. So it was definitely something different overall. I would say though that there was a big learning curve, and the way I overcame this was that I actually started to analyze all of their customer contracts. I analyzed between 500 to 1,000 contracts in 2020, and it helped me really understand how the business worked, how to do the engagement. So I think overall it was something that I needed to do in order to understand how the business works. In auditor terms, that's called UTB, or understanding the business. So, as 2020 came to a close, I definitely was, picking up my stride, and working with my new team, and it was a great time. It was something that I truly enjoyed, being a consultant and be able to help people. Alrighty, everyone, and that's going to conclude Anthony's Journey, episode 13.
Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing an amazing job, and I'm wishing everyone out there all the best. All right, until next time, adios.